Spinal adjustments provided by Dr. Chad Rolfson. The Spinal Tuning Chiropractic Center is a Des Moines area low flat fee per month unlimited chiropractic care practice. When life happens, just adjust. Schedule today at spinaltuning.com.
You're listening to One on One. I am your host, Jimmy Olsen. I had an opportunity to chat with award-winning writer, director, and actor. He's even an author. His name is Tom Getty. He has a couple of movies that are available on Amazon Prime. Now, I do apologize because he was going through a storm where he lives in his neck of the woods, so we do have some issues with the connection, but I hope you're still able to enjoy the conversation I had with Tom Getty. You're listening to One on One. I am your host, Jimmy Olsen. Joining me on this episode, well, I've got an interesting story of how I just kind of tripped onto this guy, but he is an award-winning writer, director, and actor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Tom Getty. Tom, how are you, sir?
Jimmy, thank you so much for having me on tonight. I feel pretty good. I'm all happy to be here.
Well, and I appreciate you taking the time out to have a conversation with me. And I'll go through the story really quick, but then I'll have you give us a little bit of a background for you. But I ran across a couple of your movies, which it's only a couple because you've got a few that you've done on Amazon Prime over the weekend, and I was impressed. I thought they were very good, and I'll explain that a little more as we talk about this. But kind of give us a little bit, a little synopsis about Tom.
Well, with the movies, I have the usual story. I started when I was a little kid, and I got very interested in it, and I got very interested in screenwriting and writing stories. I'm a big on the writing, and I really wanted to get into the business, and really became consumed with that question of, well, how do you get in the door? How do you get there? And you say, well, okay, really what it comes down to is you figure out you got to make a movie.
Okay.
and that can be unfortunate, because you don't have a lot of resources. So a lot of my, trip or whatever you want to call it became learning how to make movies from where I am, which is not in the industry. And in fact, when I got to the end of that trip, I don't like to use that word journey, but the trip or whatever, at the end of that sojourn, whatever, I realized that learning how to make movies outside the industry is exactly what you have to do, because that's how movies are actually made.
Well, it's kind of like the entire part of it is the journey. It's just that one little trip or that little trek that you did that's part of the whole picture.
Yes,
you really think about it. So
that was just a general overview.
No, which is fantastic. I mean, so it was like around 8 years old, you began filmmaking and writing.
Yes.
So what was the first thing that you wrote as an 8-year-old child?
I wrote a sequel to Toy Story.
Seriously?
I really liked that movie. Now, again, I was like 8.
Well, right.
And I really enjoyed that movie, and the schools had gotten computers, and I was like, well, I could use the computer to write a story, and then I was like, yeah, well, Toy Story needs a sequel, so.
And then you're like, why didn't I get that out to them faster? Because then all of a sudden it had a sequel.
Yeah, well, that actually came about 3 or 4 years later.
Right.
So I was kind of mad that they didn't pick up mine, but. Whatever.
That's well, right. We all get the disappointments from time to time, right?
Their thing was the toy collector.
Right.
Which was pretty good. My thing was Andy takes the toys to school, and then they're taken away from him at school.
Because you can't have toys or whatever. Right. Well, right. I gotcha.
Right. And they have to escape the school. And, it was like, paint by the, it was like the same kind of story as the first one.
Sure.
The same beats, but like instead of the big move at the end, it was the school bus, and they had to get home with him. and that sort of thing. So
You're listening to One on One. I am your host, Jimmy Olsen. I am chatting with award-winning writer, director, and actor Tom Getty. So before we get into a book that I really want to have a conversation about, so you've done, how many movies have you done now?
I've done 3 features.
Okay.
And 2 of them are on Amazon Prime. The first one's just about an hour long, and it, it's not really a commercial movie, so to speak. It's on YouTube. It's called The Movies. I uploaded it about 10, 12 years ago, so you have to watch it in like 10 parts, something like that. And it's what it is. I was 18.
Right.
So that, and then I've done a bunch of shorts and, the usual stuff. So.
Well, and try to get whatever you can do, because I noticed that you're trying to get some voice work and a few things like that on
I'll tell you,
those voice sites. And
that actually, and that's kind of a leftover thing from a few years ago.
Oh, so you were doing it, but not anymore.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other story. If you want to hear that story, I can tell you that one.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, so I sold the movie to a wonderful company. I sold Rising Fear to a wonderful company called High Octane Pictures.
Okay.
And they wanted to rename it America Has Fallen. Okay, well, that's what they wanted to do. And I was kind of done with movies. And I am I'm pretty much done with directing.
Okay.
And the entertainment business. However, I started doing the voiceover business, and the owner of High Octane Pictures, his name's Galen Christie, and he saw that I was doing voice work, and he said, well, "Why are you doing that?" And I was like, "Well, you got to make a buck or something, and I can do voice work." And he said, "Well, would you like to cut a movie trailer?" I was like,
okay, so after the power just shut me off, where I was in the story was the owner of High Octane Pictures, he offered me, he says, "Do you want to cut a trailer?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'm very good at that." And so I cut him a trailer, and he really liked it. And then I cut him another one. And about a year later, I had cut a number of trailers for him. And I started to realize, I was like, I'm very good at making movie trailers because I understand a lot about, making movies. And with trailer editing, you really need to understand a lot about writing and a lot of video editing, of course. But fundamentally, it's a kind of a ad writing job. It's a writing job almost.
So it's almost like an advertising agency, but it's like a trailer agency. You're doing it for trailers rather than like commercials and things like that. Yeah.
Right. And so you have to kind of like restructure your brain to reorganize the movie to, make it sell. And then, so that's what I do primarily now. And, I'm thrilled. It's the best of world me because I like to do work in my office,
Sure.
And I like, like mental work, where you're figuring out a puzzle. And so it's perfect for me. And I have a really strong background in marketing and advertising to begin with. So it just became like a perfect one.
So now, while you were doing those movie trailers that gave you the idea to write the book, How to Make Blockbuster Movies and Do It on Your Own?
Well, now, when I started that book, I was, I started that in 2017, and that was after I had sold the movie. And the reason why I did that was because I said, well, I know so much about this process, and I can bring something unique to a film book, because there's been so many film books before, and I didn't just want to write another how to make movies. And my thinking was, well, what can I do differently? And my book was, well, how people can actually make a blockbuster movie from wherever, with whatever they have. And because I remember when I was growing up, it was a lot about the equipment and all this talk about equipment and cameras and stuff. And it was very unrealistic, to a 14. Yeah, that's why I wanted to write the book to what my mind was when I was 13, 14. I didn't know anything.
Well, and we're in a different world now. I mean, we've seen the commercials. You can pretty much shoot movie quality on, an iPhone or on an Android on phones anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's a world that I wish had been around when I was a boy.
Right.
Well, not the whole world, but just that aspect of the world. The culture has declined, and good movies, and another topic altogether. But I really wanted to write a book almost to somebody like me when I was 14, and just to kind of cut right to the heart of the matter, like, hey, I want to make a movie like Night of the Living Dead, or I want to make a movie like Inception, or something cool like that. Now, of course, you can't make Inception, but like you can get it pretty. The point is that you try, and you believe you can make Inception, and that you write a good story, and you go through the whole jungle gym of making a movie. You go through all the motions, and I believe that movie making is, whether you're going to end up being Christopher Nolan or whatever, I think a wonderful crucible for young people for them, and that is it brings out the best in you. And it certainly brought out the best in me, in terms of, like, I had to learn so much. I had to learn more people skills. I had to learn more business skills. And these were skills that I did not have when I was younger, nor would they have been skills that I would have felt motivated to attain had I not wanted to make, the Batman Begins or something like that,
Well, even looking at the book, how to make blockbuster movies and do it on your own, and even looking at the movies that you did on your own and other movies, because, I get kind of curious and looking at different things that are on Amazon on Prime, because I know there's a movie out there that's called, Velocipaster, which you can almost tell that they made it in their backyard.
I work with the people who released that. Actually, it's the same.
Seriously.
Studio, so. Well, let me backtrack. I didn't work with the filmmakers. I had nothing to do with that.
No, right. No, right.
Company that released it. Yeah.
No.
That was like a cool idea for a movie. Like, but
right.
I just didn't want to say, "Oh yeah, that's my movie." No.
Right. No, again, it just shows how much of a small world this can be. But by reading this and watching what you've done, it even takes me back to when I was a child, and then hearing stories about movies that I had seen when I was younger, as I'm going to start aging myself now, but about how they either had very low budgets, like Evil Dead. They had, what was it, like an $8,000 budget, and that was it. And they had to do an entire movie on that.
About your favorite directors. In the case of Evil Dead, that would be Sam Raimi. Okay,
right.
You say, well, how did Sam Raimi make it? And because Sam Raimi went on to do the Spider-Man movies, and he's a big deal in Hollywood. And you say, well, how did Sam Raimi do it? Well, it's the same with all of those directors. They started with that first movie. And I'm not saying that in a glib way. I'm not saying that as, the first step in a long journey is little baby steps or whatever. I'm talking about they made that first movie on their own.
Right. No, absolutely.
They went out into a cabin in Michigan, I believe. In fact, that's actually not even his first movie.
Right.
It's he did a short before that called called something like Into the Woods or something, and that was with Bruce Campbell, and they shot it on like 8mm, and you can find it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But even before that, and I've never seen the movie, but even before that, Sam Raimi did a movie, and so he was very familiar even before he did Evil Dead with the actual inner workings of how a movie is made. You can, I had always thought that Evil Dead was his second or his first movie, but that was like his second, I believe. So,
well, I mean, I think it just goes to show it doesn't matter what your budget is, how big or little it is, and it's all about, what you believe in, or like you said, if you're really sold. I mean, even going back before Evil Dead, I mean, we'll go back, like I said, I'm aging myself, and we'll talk Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, I remember watching a documentary on that, and they were talking. I mean, they had, of course, had a little bit of a bigger budget, but it still wasn't like, blockbuster movie budget at all. And they were really praying it was going to work. But I mean, I remember reading about the trailer. They painted that. They basically borrowed that trailer, didn't even rent it, borrowed it, painted it with watercolors, so they could wash it off when they were done filming and give it back.
Amazing. That's amazing.
So, I mean, you just never know what it is. And like you said, it's where your heart is and where it really, and I think there's a lot of people, a lot of kids out there that are thinking about doing that, or what can we do with that? I think a book like that, or even seeing movies like you've done, or even, seeing the Velocipassers, or hearing all these stories of, you can do this, even if it's just something you're wanting to do, to say you've done it. You're not trying to make a career. There's an opportunity to really, create something.
I think I'll say this, that movie making is a young person's game. Now, I would also be tempted to say it's a young guy's game.
Right.
But it has to start when you're young and you've got nothing better to do. A young guy is just sitting there nowadays. They've got better to do, and so it's myself with the directing I mentioned earlier, that I don't direct anymore, and I don't do that stuff, and that's because on the wall, and it's not going to happen. And now, you never know. But I realized, I was like, it's not going to happen. And frankly, I don't want to do it anymore. And and I frankly would even almost add, like, it was never going to happen. However, if somebody, I could never persuade anybody to not go into the industry. I would say, just don't bother with it. Don't waste your time. However, to a young person who is really into it, I would say, first off, buy my book. That's
right.
But that's
absolutely
a self-serving thing. But I would say what you got to do is make that first movie, because one of two things will happen. One, you will find out that you actually do have some talent, and you may get to make a second movie in that you win over all the people in your little world, and they'll help you on that second movie. Or you will discover, hopefully, that you don't want to be a director, and that it's a pain, and you will discover that guys like Scorsese and Spielberg and all those guys, I'm sure they're very happy making movies and stuff, and I'm in a very enviable position. But I remember one time I heard Martin Scorsese talk movie that he made, and he was like, Mean Streets. It's basically like his first or second film he made when he was, younger, with his friends. And he mentioned that it was with his friends. And the truth of the matter is, the most fun you will ever have making a movie is when you're young and you're with your friends. And it ain't getting any better after that. Like, so you'll discover one of two things. It's a win-win for a young person. Then once you get older, once you turn 30, I thought I could beat it by staying single. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
right.
Like, I remember when I heard, when you turn 30, everything changes. And I thought, okay, they're talking about marriage and kids, and that shuts it down completely. There's still, I guess there's people out there that make it work. I don't know. I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, okay, well, I can be single. And what happens is there's this thing that just creeps in your late 20s, and you actually want to have some efficacy on the world, and you're like, you realize it's like, hey man, I got to grow up. But I want to emphasize there's 2 points there. There's 2 halves, which is when you're younger, it's great. When you're younger, that's when you should be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that when you pass 30, it's over, because there's a lot of filmmakers who, like Wes Craven, started very late, and God bless him. But it gets more expensive as you get older. So,
well, it's one of those things that, like they always say, sometimes being in the right place at the right time, or depending on where you are in your life. I mean, of course, you're talking about growing up, and I'm sitting here still doing radio, so I'm still trying to figure out when I'm going to grow up. But
well, and I don't mean to say
it was.
The other thing too is it's not even with the directing. Like, I could still be directing. In fact, I got like a few offers to do like real small movies. But I was like, I shouldn't say growing up, because it's a matter of like, I just was like, I don't want to. I got this out of my system. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely right. I mean, you that was a chapter that you wanted to do. You got it done. Okay, so now what do I do next? Type of thing.
Radio also is something that, like, here's the other terrible truth. And radio doesn't kill you. You know what I mean? Making movies can kill you. I mean, it's a brutal, like Zack Snyder, who directed 300, Batman versus Superman, and everything, and he akined to torture and enduring torture. And I remember I heard that, and it struck me, and I was like, I wouldn't have understood that when I was 14. I would, because you think it's the greatest job ever, but when you're 30, it's it can be absolute torture.
Well, the long hours and, the weather conditions, depending on where you're shooting everything. I mean, even in radio, I completely get it, because as you're trying to, cut your teeth or work your way up, I mean, the hours that you are trying to put in, not just doing your regular day job at this station, but then now I've got a appearance that I have to do tonight, or I've got to do this, or with everybody wearing multiple hats anymore.
Oh, well, that's a whole, like, now with radio, with your business, there's a need. There's a pressing need. With directing, I hate to say it, there ain't no need. Like, I realized that and this kind of ties into the next point, which is, you after a while discover that movie making is a celebrity business. It is
absolutely.
It's not. It's celebrity. Like, I would say, like, if I were a movie mogul, and I'm trying to think, Martin Scorsese came in, and he was like, "Oh, I need $200 million to make X movie." I would be like, "Oh man, no thanks." But if Kim Kardashian came in and wanted to make the same movie for $300 million, I would say, hell yeah, you got it. Because, and that's a sad statement, but that's because you said you got to make an appearance.
Right.
And that's like, you got to market it. You've got to be a celebrity. You have to be a passionate, or you have to be a personality that people are passionate about. That's a whole, you could say, well, I remember when I was a kid, I was like, well, I can go on shows and stuff and be interviewed. But it's like, no, you have to be chosen. You have to be, somebody else, and so.
Well, that's why when you have that conversation, when they're doing movies, they're trying to get like the best that they can pay for of either getting that A-list. We still run into a few of those actors that get into movies, and it just was the right time. They were that overnight success. They moved on, but that's not the way it works every single time. Sometimes you have to have Bruce Willis. Sometimes you have to have, Chuck, fill in the blank here.
I remember when I was younger, and I thought to myself, I was like, I'm not really big on the celebrity side of the business. I just want to work. I just want to work. But you as a young boy, or me, and when I say you, I mean me or a filmmaker.
No, absolutely, I understand.
It's almost like in that movie, The Matrix, when you take the red pill, and you think you're living in one world, but you're actually living in a totally inverted world. And so, and once I realized that, I was like, okay with not making any more movies per se. And so, like, I mean, it's nice every once in a while somebody will reach out to me and say, "Oh, I really like that movie that was on Amazon." You're like, "Oh, that's cool, thank you." I'm like, but I just take those skills and I put them to trailer making, and I gotta say, like, the skills that I really honed really well positioned me to make movies. That's and how, like, if you wanted to hire somebody music too, they need to have this skill, that skill, mixing, mastering, editing, and they got to be like 15 hours.
And absolutely. I mean, and I totally get where. I mean, again, it's not an easy business, and it's something that takes a lot of work. And I mean, even on, when you look at entertainment in general, anything that's in the entertainment business, either being movie making, TV shows, even for when you're in radio, all the different skills you need to learn. It's not just being on the air. It's also doing all the behind the scenes pieces, with production, and, you need to be able to do this. You need to be able to do that. Also, how versatile are you, I mean, at least with radio, I mean, when you're making movies, it's like either you're making movies or you're not. I mean, in radio, it's like, okay, this time I might work at a rock and roll station, but tomorrow I could be working at a country station. How versatile are you to make a switch if you're that sold on staying in the business?
Yeah, I mean, you really got to have that, like, and I guess those guys are obsessed, and you got to bless them. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Tenet, Christopher Nolan's movie. So, I'm happy they do it. So for me, I was like, look, I want to pass on that knowledge and that books, what that book is.
Mm-hmm. So where is the How to Make a Blockbuster Movie and Do It on Your Own? Where is it available?
How to Make Blockbuster Movies and Do It on Your Own is available in hardback and paperback on Amazon.com.
So you can just shoot over there and you can order that up. And now, any of your other movies, if somebody ever, I mean, outside of maybe trying to find them on Amazon Prime, are they available on Amazon for purchase as well? Either the emulation or
just emulation and America Has Fallen are available on there. And YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Tom Getty 88. I put a lot of my trailers, and a lot of old stuff that I've done on there.
Sure. And then there's one other one that I was looking at here, Tom Getty, The Invading. So is that another book that you've written, or what?
Oh, yeah. That's a book that I wrote about, like, it's like an alien slasher kind of story, like The Shining.
Sure, okay. And that's also available on Amazon?
Yes, sir.
Well, very fantastic. You're listening to One-on-One. I'm your host, Jimmy Olsen, chatting with Tom Getty, award-winning writer, director, and author, actor. Do you have anything for for the books yet? Have you won any awards for those yet? Or are you working on it? Or am I just giving you that automatic?
No, I mean, those awards, those are kind of from, the old movies, like some film festivals and stuff.
Sure. Well, very cool. Well, Tom, I appreciate your time. I appreciate chatting with you, and anyone that is really looking at doing something, either making movies or even getting into, just the video production side, making trailers. I would, of course, encourage to go check that out. How to Make Blockbuster Movies and Do It on Your Own. And I know you're kind of dealing with a storm while we're trying to pull this thing through, but I appreciate your time, Tom.
Hey, Jimmy, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm about to get cut off. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Great talking to you, sir.
Again, I apologize for the technical issues that we had during the interview tonight, but I hope you were able to enjoy the conversation that I had with Tom Getty, award-winning writer, director, and actor, and author. You've been listening to One-on-One. I am your host, Jimmy Olsen. Now, you can listen to this and many other One-on-One episodes and my other podcasts as well. It's available on the Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and you can also follow along on my social media whenever I post a new podcast as well, both Facebook and on Twitter at MyBuddyJimmy, and follow along as well on my YouTube page, which is MyBuddyJimmy101. But if you enjoyed this, please share it with others and subscribe. Whenever there's a new podcast, you can always receive that next one. Thank you for listening to One-on-One. I am your host, Jimmy Olsen. Have a great night.